Iron Man said it was over, that peace was possible. But peace built on a lie is just war in disguise. He thought he buried it deep enough that even Fury wouldn't find it. But Superman did. And what he uncovered didn't just break trust. It shattered the very idea of the Avengers. One by one, Earth's mightiest heroes turned on each other. Because when the truth comes from Superman, it sounds like justice. He thought no one would ever find it. The file was locked behind 6 layers of Stark-grade encryption, firewalled beneath decoy viruses, and buried in a subserver marked as deleted 2 years ago. Not even JRVS could access it without direct override. To Tony, it wasn't just secure, it was erased. But Superman doesn't need to hack. He hears the hum of frequencies no machine can pick up. He sees the residue of energy signatures most satellites wouldn't detect. And when he stood outside that black site in Nevada, where the air itself seemed afraid to move, he knew Stark had been there. Not just there, in charge. What he found inside wasn't a weapon. It was a massacre. Scorched metal, claw marks on the walls, blood trails that led nowhere. And in the center of the facility, the corpse of a Kryptonian child, half-cloned, half-human, veins still glowing blue from experimental energy exposure. And next to the body, a plaque with a single word, prototype. Tony thought he had good reasons. 2 years ago, an anomaly had been detected in the Phantom Zone, a tear that briefly bled into Earth's upper atmosphere. SHIELD and Stark Industries had contained it barely. But something came through, not Zod, not Brainiac, something far worse. A flash of the future, a vision of Superman, burning with rage, floating over a broken planet. In that moment, Stark didn't see Clark Kent. He saw Ultron again, so he built a contingency, a Kryptonian hybrid clone designed to counter Kal-El if he ever turned. No one else knew. Not the Avengers, not SHIELD, not even Pepper. The clone failed. It died in testing, but Stark locked it all away, the files, the footage, the failure. Buried it so deep it might as well have been fiction. Until now, Superman returned from the black site with the child's body in his arms. No suit, no cape, just silence. He flew to Avengers Tower. He didn't knock. He floated outside the window of Stark's lab, hovering just inches from the glass. No words, no heat vision, just eyes. Tony stared back, heart racing, mind calculating. The way Superman was looking at him, he knew. Somehow he knew. The meeting was called within the hour. Every Avenger, every core member, Cap, Thor, Banner, Natasha, Rhodey, even Strange, gathered in the main chamber. Superman stood in the center, still silent. Then he dropped the body. Gasps. Fury stepped forward. "What is this?" Superman spoke only 4 words. "Ask him. He built it." The room turned to Stark. Tony tried to lie. "I don't know what this is." But Superman's voice cut through him. "Do not insult them. Not again." He raised his hand, and a hologram flared into the air, grainy security footage from the Nevada site. Stark in full armor, walking through the lab, giving orders, holding the clone's small, shaking hand. Thor stepped forward. "What treachery is this?" Tony snapped. It wasn't a weapon. It was insurance. A backup, in case Clark ever lost control. Natasha's face went cold. "You experimented on a child." "It wasn't a child," Tony barked. "It was a bioform, a failed clone. It was dying anyway." The room erupted. Cap slammed his fist into the table. "You made this decision alone? You went behind the team? Behind the UN? Behind humanity?" Rhodey tried to calm things down, but his voice was shaking. "Tony, you told me we were done with this. No more Ultron-level secrets. No more gods in cages." "It was one file," Stark said, defensive now desperate. "It was a precaution. A broken one." Superman stepped forward, quiet fury radiating from his skin like heat off a dying star. "I spent my whole life proving I would never be your enemy," he said. "And the moment you feared I might be, you created something to kill me." Silence. Then Stark said it, the thing no one was ready to hear. "I saw what you become." Superman's eyes narrowed. "In the future," Tony said. Something's coming. You lose control. You burn everything. I had to prepare. And did you prepare for the day I found this? Superman asked. Did you prepare for what it would cost? I saved lives. Stark yelled. You don't get to play victim when your future self was ready to erase us all. Thor raised Mjolnir. Bruce backed away. Strange opened a portal behind him, a reflex, an escape route. And Captain America? He took off his shield and placed it on the table. If this is what we become, Steve said quietly, then we're no longer Avengers. We're survivors of our own paranoia. Superman looked at each of them. I did not come here for war. I came for the truth. And then he turned, cape flicking behind him, and left through the open ceiling, vanishing into the sky with the speed of judgment itself. The team stood in silence. Stark slumped into his chair, hands shaking. No one spoke, because they all knew. The worst thing Tony Stark had ever done wasn't building a weapon. It was giving Superman a reason not to trust them anymore. And that was a weapon all its own. They thought it would blow over. A secret exposed, tempers flared. But like all Avengers disputes, maybe it would just burn hot and fast, then vanish into silence. Maybe Tony would give a press conference, take the blame, spin it like he always did. But Superman didn't let it die. Because this time, it wasn't about a lie. It was about what that lie cost. 2 days later, at sunrise, Superman appeared. Not at the Avengers compound, not at the Pentagon, not at the Justice League watchtower. He landed in Geneva, right in front of a United Nations World Council during a live broadcast. No warning, no backup, no smiles, just truth. The sky behind him turned gold as the sun rose. But Superman stood like a shadow over everything they thought they understood about power. I am Kal-El of Krypton, he said into the cameras. I have protected this world since before many of you held office. I have fought monsters, gods, tyrants, and threats not even your brightest minds can pronounce. He paused. And yet the greatest threat I have ever seen was built in silence, funded by fear, hidden by one of Earth's own heroes. A buzz rippled through the hall. Cameras zoomed in. News channels cut their feeds. World leaders leaned in as Superman raised his hand. A hologram bloomed. Not a weapon, not a missile, a child. That same Kryptonian hybrid clone, struggling to breathe in a test chamber. Stark's voice echoing. Stabilize it. Just give me 5 more minutes before it melts down. Gasps. Screams. Even the council president dropped his earpiece. Superman continued. Tony Stark created a Kryptonian bioweapon. Alone. In secret. In violation of the Sokovia Accords, the Geneva Code, and a dozen peace treaties. The words hit like thunder. But it was his next line that cracked the world open. If the Avengers knew and did nothing, then they are no longer protectors. They are enablers of tyranny. And just like that, the world turned. Reporters swarmed Avengers Tower. S.H.I.E.L.D. went silent. Politicians demanded sanctions. Wakanda called for an emergency summit. Atlantis blocked all Stark tech from entering its borders. But it was the Avengers themselves who fractured first. Steve Rogers didn't speak to Tony. He just walked away. Bruce Banner withdrew completely, reportedly leaving Earth through one of strange portals. No one heard from him for days. Thor returned to Asgard, calling the axe a betrayal of trust not even Loki would attempt. And Natasha? She didn't say a word. She packed. She vanished. Only a folded note left on her desk. If you ever weaponized me behind my back, I'd want to know. Inside Avengers HQ, Tony sat in silence. Pepper stood behind him, watching as screens showed every country condemning him. Even Nick Fury had gone dark. Did you think this would stay buried forever? She asked. Tony didn't answer, because the truth was, yes, he did. That's why he built it that way. But he underestimated 2 things: Superman's patience and his precision. Across the globe, Superman visited governments, not to threaten, but to tell the full story. He didn't just expose Stark. He exposed every hidden protocol designed to control him. Vibranium satellite grids, Stark modified red sun radiation weapons, emergency kryptonite drills buried in major cities. The world had been preparing for Superman's fall, instead of trusting in his restraint. And now, the trust was gone. Tony tried to fight back the only way he knew how, with tech and talk. He called a press conference, branded it the Superman fallout, claimed the clone wasn't a weapon, but a research error, claimed the data was misrepresented, claimed Superman was acting emotional, unstable. The media didn't buy it. Neither did the people. And worse, the Avengers finally split. Rhodey stood by Tony at first. He defended him on air, but off camera, he confronted him. "You should have told me," he said. "We could have built a better failsafe. Together. Something that didn't breathe." Tony said nothing. So War Machine took off the suit and walked. Then Carol Danvers came down from orbit. She didn't hold back. "You made a decision that could have started a war with the most powerful being on Earth. Not because of what he did, but because of what you imagined he might." Tony fired back. "He's not one of us. You aren't either." Danvers flinched. "That's the problem, Tony. You don't trust anyone who's stronger than you." And then she left too. At the edge of all this, Superman stood distant. He didn't threaten Tony. He didn't rally support. He didn't take over. He let the truth work on its own. Because in a world built on fear, truth is nuclear. Behind closed doors, Stark started working again. Faster than ever. More isolated. Building something big. Because deep down, he knew what was coming. Not war. Something worse. Accountability. And all across the planet, one question echoed louder and louder. If Iron Man could betray the Avengers, what's stopping any of them? It started with silence. The kind that hangs in the air after an explosion, not because everything's calm, but because no one knows what to say anymore. The Avengers weren't just fractured. They were radioactive. No one trusted anyone, not even themselves. The compound was dead, quiet. No training, no briefings, no missions. Just shadows of the team that once saved the universe. Steve stayed in the lower levels, not because he was hiding, but because if he looked Tony in the eye again, he wasn't sure he could stop himself from swinging. And if he did, he wouldn't hold back. Thor hadn't returned since the fallout. The Bifrost had cracked open above the tower once, then sealed. No message, no word. Even Banner was unreachable. Somewhere in deep space. Maybe hiding, maybe gone. Superman, meanwhile, said nothing more. He disappeared from public view, but his presence loomed larger than ever. He wasn't fighting. He wasn't leading. He was watching. And that scared everyone more than anything. Inside Avengers HQ, paranoia crept in like smoke through cracks. Every conversation ended with a glance over the shoulder. Every locked door felt like a betrayal waiting to happen. Rhodey finally broke the tension. He confronted Tony in the hangar. "You're still building something," he said, arms crossed. Tony didn't deny it. He just stared at the suit laid out in front of him. Mark 105. Sleek. Heavier than usual. Red sun emitters embedded in the chest plate. "Tell me you're not planning to fight him," Rhodey said, voice low. "I'm planning not to die if he decides the UN isn't enough," Tony muttered. Rhodey took a step forward. "That's not planning. That's provoking." Tony looked up. "You think he's done? You think a man like that, with power like his, just fades into the background? This is checkmate, and I won't sit here like a pawn." "You're the one who moved first," Rhodey snapped. "Now you're just scared of your own consequences." He turned and left. This time for good. Outside, things got worse. Nations began pulling Avengers from official duties. Peacekeeping programs got suspended. Trust eroded faster than ever. Wakanda issued a public statement condemning the cloning operation. King T'Challa didn't name Stark directly. He didn't have to. Everyone knew. Shuri cut off all tech-sharing initiatives with Stark Industries. The Wakandan embassy quietly removed all arc reactors from their power grid. Atlantis followed. The world no longer saw the Avengers as heroes. They saw them as a powder keg, and the match had already been lit. Then came the betrayal that broke it all. Carol Danvers intercepted a deep space transmission. Stark had activated a beacon, not to call allies, but to contact the Watchtower. Not Superman's, Batman's. Tony had gone behind the Avengers' backs again, this time to reach out to Bruce Wayne. Not for help, for blueprints. "You're building a prison," Carol said as she stormed into his lab. Tony didn't look away from the screen. "A containment field for Kryptonian-level threats. Just in case." "Just in case," she spat. "You're turning us into exactly what the world is afraid of." "I'm making sure the world survives," he growled. "That's not survival. That's control." He faced her then, the old fire back in his eyes. "Funny. That's what I told you during the Accords. And you didn't listen either." Carol didn't argue. She blasted the console with photon energy, shattering it into sparks. "Then I'm done listening," she said. She vanished into orbit within the hour. But what she didn't know, what none of them knew, was that Stark had already completed a prototype, not just for Superman, for all of them. In a private vault beneath the tower, he had a separate file for each member. Thor, enchanted disruptor tech. Banner, vibranium tranquilizer shell. Rogers, shield magnetizing boots designed to snap his balance mid-fight. Danvers, frequency pulses that mimicked her cosmic bandwidth. He wasn't just preparing for Superman. He was preparing for the day they all turned. But he wasn't the only one. Steve Rogers met with Nick Fury in a hidden base in Iceland. Off-grid. No satellites. No leaks. Fury had one question. "You gonna take him down?" Steve didn't blink. "I'm going to stop him before he does something he can't take back." Fury leaned back. "And if that something is already in motion?" Steve clenched his fists. "Then I take the shot." Even Natasha, who hadn't been seen since the Geneva broadcast, sent one encrypted message to Clint Barton. "Pick a side. Fast." Then the final fracture came. A team of S.H.I.E.L.D. agents, operating under Tony's silent order, raided a Kryptonian tech vault in the Arctic. A vault Kal-El had sworn to keep buried after the war with Zod. It was empty when they arrived, because Superman was already there. What happened next was never recorded, but the wreckage told the story. For agents unconscious, one broken leg, all alive, but barely. The only thing Superman left behind was a symbol, his family crest, burned into the snow with heat vision. The message was clear. "I gave you peace. You answered with fear." By the time the world heard about the incident, it was already too late. The Avengers had stopped being a team. Now, they were just targets in each other's crosshairs. And above them all, watching from the clouds, was the one man who never asked to lead, but who might be forced to finish what Stark started. Because if the truth could break the Avengers, what could vengeance do? He never wanted it to go this far. Not when he built the clone. Not when he buried the files. Not even when Superman stood over him, holding the body like a silent accusation. But Tony Stark had made a fatal miscalculation. He thought he could contain Superman with tech. He never considered the one thing Kal-El had more of than any of them: restraint. And now that restraint was gone. Whispers turned to rumors. Rumors turned to footage. And footage turned to panic. Somewhere in the Pacific, a Stark Industries transport vessel went dark. It was carrying a prototype anti-Kryptonian drone. It never made it to its classified destination. All that remained was a single sonar ping and a crater on the ocean floor, glowing with melted steel. No one could confirm Superman was responsible, but no one had to. Inside the compound, Tony doubled down. New armor, new AI, new parameters. No more doubts, no more backups. This was wartime Stark now. He locked down all Avengers access codes, secured satellite control, took remote access of any global defense tech with a Stark signature, and he issued the order. If Superman approaches within 500 meters of any facility, engage. That was the turning point. Not when the first punch was thrown, but when the world saw Tony Stark prepare for war against a man who hadn't lifted a hand in violence. The press turned. The US government distanced itself. Stark Industries stock plummeted. Emergency meetings were held. But Tony didn't care. He wasn't trying to win public favor. He was trying to survive what was coming. Then it happened. A satellite went offline above Metropolis. One of Stark's. No explosion. No EMP. Just gone. Tony reviewed the footage himself. In the final frame, before the blackout, was a blur, a silhouette of a cape. No heat vision. No destruction. Just removal. Deliberate. Superman had stopped playing defense. The next day, Superman released a single message to the world. No press. No rally. No drama. Just one sentence. Burned across the sky over Washington, DC in glowing, harmless heat vision. Fear is not protection. No one knew what it meant. But Tony did. It meant Superman was done mourning. The same night, Clint Barton arrived at the compound. Unannounced. Quiet. He didn't come to pick a side. He came to stop the bleeding. "You need to call this off," Clint said. Tony didn't look up from his screen. "You're playing chicken with a god," Clint added. "And you're the only one in a car." Tony kept typing. Clint stepped closer. "Look, man, you're not just putting yourself at risk. You're putting all of us in his crosshairs." Tony finally looked up. "You think this is about me surviving?" Clint blinked. "It's not," Tony said. "It's about making sure the rest of you can, if I don't." Clint sighed. "You're gonna lose everything." Tony stood. "I already did." In the distance, alarm screamed. An energy spike. Tower perimeter. Tony's suit locked onto him in seconds. "Is it him?" Clint asked. Tony looked out the window. The skies were still, but the sun was flickering, dimming unnaturally, as if something massive was between it and the earth. And then it stepped through the atmosphere, slowly, silently, descending not like a missile, but like judgment. Superman. But this wasn't the same man they knew. He wasn't hovering. He walked into the tower courtyard. No cape, no smile, no hesitation. Tony met him outside, suit humming, repulsors lit. "You came alone," Tony said. "So did you," Superman replied. Around them, wind howled. Cameras watched. Satellites locked on. "I'm not here to kill you," Superman said. "I'm here to end the cycle." "What cycle?" Tony asked. "The one where your fear builds weapons. Your weapons spark war, and your war costs lives." "You think I want this?" Tony barked. "I've been trying to stop the future you. The one that burns cities, that rips through planets. The one I saw." Superman stepped closer. "I've seen the future too," he said. "And do you know what I saw?" Tony hesitated. "I saw you, alone, in a fortress of armor. No allies, no peace, just machines and paranoia. Better alone than dead," Tony muttered. Superman nodded. "That's exactly how it ends." Then he raised his hand, not in attack, but in warning, and the skies shifted. Above them, descending like angels of light, were Kryptonians. Dozens of them, survivors from the Phantom Rift, hidden, rescued, trained in the shadows. Tony staggered back. You said you were the last." "I was," Superman said, "but I'm not anymore." The message was clear. He didn't need to fight. He had a family now, a force, a counter to the Avengers, a warning to every government that ever tried to control him. This wasn't revenge. It was balance. Tony lowered his repulsors, heart racing. "I can still stop this," he whispered. Superman's eyes glowed faintly, not with anger, but with disappointment. "You already tried," he said, "and in doing so you proved why it was necessary." Then he took off. The Kryptonians followed. No battle, no deaths, just power revealed. And for the first time in his life, Tony Stark watched an opponent walk away without fear, because the damage was already done. The Avengers weren't Earth's mightiest heroes anymore. They were fractured legends, haunted by secrets, divided by lies. And Superman? He never lifted a finger. He just let the truth tear them apart. There was no final battle, no cataclysm, no laser in the sky ending. Just silence, and then something new. Superman never struck the first blow, but he landed the last one without lifting a hand. The world didn't cheer. It watched. The Avengers were ghosts now. Broken trust doesn't heal with apologies, especially when the whole planet saw what they allowed. what they enabled, what they hid. And in that vacuum, Superman stepped forward, not as a king, not as a god, as something worse for men like Stark, a symbol people believed in again. He didn't rebuild the Justice League. He didn't resurrect old banners. Instead, he formed a council. Heroes without borders. Kryptonians, mutants, humans, aliens, judged not by loyalty to governments, but by transparency to the people. Truth wasn't a slogan anymore. It was policy. And when warlords moved, Superman didn't bomb them. He exposed their bank accounts. He stopped missiles mid-air and set them on the lawns of those who launched them. No casualties, just accountability. Meanwhile, Stark sat alone. The tower emptied. Friday silent. Suits offline. He had built armor for every possible threat, but never one for his own paranoia. Steve never came back. Neither did Natasha. Thor returned once, only to say, "There's no honor in fighting a war of ego." Then left. And Banner? No one's heard his name since. Tony finally understood. He didn't lose to Superman's power. He lost to his restraint. Because while Stark built weapons for every fear, Superman became the thing people feared disappointing. One final file appeared in Tony's lab days later. Untraceable, untouchable, no text, no warning, just a clip. The young Kryptonian clone smiling. Before the tests, before the collapse, just laughing, alive. Tony watched it for hours, not because he wanted forgiveness, but because it was the only time the silence didn't feel like punishment. And outside his window, the world turned, not in chaos, not in conquest, but in something far more terrifying to men like him. Trust. Trust in a man who never needed to prove he was better, because he never tried. He just waited. And when the lie finally collapsed, he told the truth. And it was enough.